Not all coins are what they seem. Some were spent without a second thought, yet they're worth thousands, even millions today, hidden in drawers, jars, and pockets, are pieces of history waiting to be discovered. At Rare Coins, we uncover the real value, the truth behind the hype, and the coins collectors would do anything to own. Welcome to Rare Coins. Real value, real history, no hype. People love to say that the 1943 wheat penny can make you rich overnight. You've probably seen the viral claims, check your change. This penny is worth over $1 million. Well, there's some truth buried in all that hype. But the real story is even more fascinating than the rumors. And if you don't know the differences between the rare ones and the common ones, you might miss out on a small fortune sitting in your collection. Let's start with why 1943 is one of the most unusual years in U.S. coin history. In the middle of World War II, copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military wiring. The U.S. Mint made a bold decision. They stopped striking pennies from copper and instead used zinc-coated steel. These 1943 steel cents look silver gray, not copper brown. And they're magnetic. The only regular U.S. cents that are. More than 1 billion were made across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. Here's where the myth starts. Most 1943 steel cents are only worth a few cents to a couple dollars, even in nice condition. But there's a legendary mistake. A very small number of 1943 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets from 1942. These 1943 copper cents are among the most famous errors in American numismatics. One of these, in high mint state grade, sold for $750,000 at auction. Yes, that's the real highest verified price. If you're wondering, how could a mistake like this happen? It's all about the minting process. At the end of 1942, a few copper blanks were left in the coin presses. When 1943 production began, those copper blanks got mixed in and struck with the 1943 dies. The result? An extremely small run of copper, 1943 pennies, that were never supposed to exist. Now here's the catch. There are countless fakes. Some 1943 steel cents have been copper-plated, and some 1948 copper cents have been altered to look like 1943. So before you get dollar signs in your eyes, you need to do 2 quick tests. First, grab a magnet. If it sticks, it's steel and common. If it doesn't stick, you might have copper. Second, check the date carefully under magnification to be sure the hasn't been altered from an 8. Beyond the famous copper error, even regular 1943 steel cents can have value in higher grades or with certain mint errors. Doubled dies, off-center strikes, and coins struck on defective planchets can all bring premium prices. For example, a 1943D steel cent graded MS68 by PCGS once sold for $218,500, making it one of the most valuable steel cents ever. Grading is critical here. The difference between a $1 coin and a $200,000 coin can come down to condition and certification. Collectors and dealers rely on professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC to authenticate and grade these coins. Mint state grades with clean original surfaces are the most desirable. If you're thinking about selling, my advice is to avoid rushing to a pawn shop or random online buyer. Instead, have the coin authenticated first. Then check recent auction results to understand the real market value. Heritage auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections are among the most trusted platforms for rare coin sales. And here's something every collector should hear. Never clean your 1943 wheat penny. Cleaning leaves microscopic scratches that destroy collector value, even if the coin looks shinier afterward. Original surfaces are king in numismatics. Once they're gone, you can't get them back. So to sum it up, yes, the 1943 wheat penny can be worth a life-changing amount of money, but only the rare copper version or ultra-high grade steel cents with special varieties hit those numbers. If you have one, handle it carefully, get it graded, and sell it through a reputable auction. This is the kind of real, no-hype coin knowledge we share every week here on Rare Coin Collecting. If you're a coin investor, collector, buyer, or seller who wants to separate the myths from the money, this channel is for you. In the world of American coin collecting, there's one penny that has sparked more rumors, fake stories, and wild price claims than almost any other. The 1943 wheat penny. You've probably seen headlines saying it's worth millions. Well, some versions of it actually are. But most of the ones you'll find in circulation are worth just a few cents. The trick is knowing the difference. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today. Let's start with why this coin exists in the first place. During World War II, the U.S. needed copper for ammunition, shell casings, and military equipment. So in 1943, the mint switched from copper to zinc-coated steel for pennies. That's why almost every 1943 penny you see is gray in color, and magnetic, they're steel cents. But here's where it gets interesting. A tiny number of 1943 pennies were mistakenly struck in copper, planchets left over from 1942. Those are the famous 1943 copper pennies that can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now here's where the Denver Mint comes in. In 1943, the Denver facility produced over 217 million steel cents and only one confirmed, authentic 1943D copper penny is known to exist. That single coin sold in 2010 for a staggering $1.7 million in a private sale. It is considered one of the most valuable Lincoln cents in history. But here's the problem. For every genuine 1943D copper penny, there are thousands of counterfeits. Most of the copper 1943 pennies you see online are actually 1948 copper cents with the 8 altered into a 3, or 1943 steel cents plated with copper to fool collectors. That's why authentication is everything. So, how do you know what you have? First, grab a magnet. A genuine steel 1943D penny will stick to it instantly. If your coin doesn't stick, it might be copper, but don't celebrate yet. That's when you need to weigh it. A steel cent weighs about 2.7 grams, while a genuine copper cent weighs around 3.11 grams. If your coin is copper and from 1943D, it's worth sending to a top grading service like PCGS or NGC immediately. Let's talk about grading. Most 1943D steel cents in circulated condition are only worth a few cents to a few dollars, but in mint state grades, with brilliant luster, no wear, and minimal spotting, they can be worth significantly more. An MS-68 example, the highest known grade for a 1943D steel cent, sold for over $10,000 at auction. Condition makes all the difference. If you're looking to buy one of these coins, whether steel or copper, and the number one rule is buy from reputable dealers, certified auctions, or coins already graded by trusted services. The fake market for 1943D copper cents is massive, and even experienced collectors can get fooled. Now let's address cleaning. I know some people think they can make a coin look better by shining it up. But cleaning a valuable coin is like polishing an antique painting. It destroys the natural surface and can slash its value in half or more. Collectors and grading companies want original surfaces, even if they look dull or toned. Never clean a coin you suspect might be rare. When it comes to selling, if you have a certified high-grade 1943D steel cent, you might sell it through online coin auctions, coin shows, or major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers. But if you have, or think you have, the ultra-rare 1943D copper penny, that's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. You'll want to work directly with a top numismatic auctioneer who specializes in 6- and 7-figure coins. The 1943D wheat penny isn't just a piece of metal. It's a story of wartime America, a mistake that created one of the most sought-after coins in history, and a reminder that sometimes the rarest treasures are hiding in plain sight. And if you're serious about learning the truth behind valuable coins, avoiding the hype and becoming a smarter buyer, seller, or collector, Rare Coin Collecting is here to guide you. We're on a mission to spread authentic, no-nonsense coin knowledge, so you'll never fall for another fake headline. People keep saying the 1943 silver wheat penny can make you an overnight millionaire. They show shiny coins, throw out wild prices, and promise you'll retire by the weekend if you find one in your change. But let's slow down. This story is a lot bigger and a lot more fascinating than the clickbait headlines will ever tell you. Because if you really want to understand the truth behind this coin, you need to know why it exists in the first place, and why almost everyone has the wrong idea about it. Let's set the scene. It's 1943, the world is at war. The United States is fully engaged in World War II, and every factory, every farm, and every mine is working around the clock to supply materials for the war effort. Copper, the metal normally used to make pennies, is desperately needed for shell casings, wiring for communications, and countless military applications. The U.S. Mint had a big problem. They couldn't spare copper for coins, but the country still needed pennies in circulation. The solution? In 1943, the U.S. Mint struck pennies from zinc-coated steel instead of copper. These coins were lighter in color, a shiny gray when brand new, and because of that, people often referred to them as silver pennies, even though they contain no silver at all. That's right. If you're holding a 1943 penny and it looks silvery, it's most likely steel with a thin zinc coating, not a precious metal. Now here's where things get interesting. Most 1943 pennies were indeed steel, but a tiny handful, and I mean tiny, were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets from 1942. Those are the true rarities, and they're the ones that can sell for staggering prices at auction. But the average silver, 1943 penny, you find in a jar or coin roll, it's usually worth far less than the myths claim. The 1943 steel penny was produced at all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins have no mint mark. Denver coins carry a small D under the date. San Francisco coins carry an S. Millions were made, over 1 billion total, so they're not exactly scarce. But here's the twist. The zinc coating on these coins doesn't hold up perfectly over time. Once it wears away, the steel core can rust. That's why you'll often see them with spots, discoloration, or even pitting. Condition is everything in numismatics, and this coin is no exception. A pristine, mint state 1943 steel penny with sharp detail and bright luster can be worth much more than a corroded one, even if they're the same date and mint mark. Collectors pay for eye appeal, originality, and grading quality. But let's circle back to the copper version, the one that fuels the rumors. If you have a 1943 penny and it's brownish, not silvery, you might want to have it tested. But be careful, there are counterfeits. Some people take ordinary 1943 steel pennies and coat them with copper to fool buyers. Others take genuine copper pennies from different years and alter the dates to read 1943. Under magnification, these fakes can be spotted, but to the untrained eye they can be convincing. So how do you know what you've got? First, use a magnet. Steel 1943 pennies are magnetic. They'll stick right to it. Copper ones will not. If your 1943 penny isn't magnetic and it's clearly not plated steel, you may have something special. But at that point, don't rely on guesswork. Submit it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll authenticate it and, if genuine, encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder with its grade clearly labeled. The story of the 1943 silver, or more accurately, steel wheat penny is one of wartime sacrifice, innovation, and the occasional happy accident. Most of them aren't rare, but they represent a unique moment in American history, when even our smallest coin was part of a global effort. For collectors, that history is worth as much as the coin itself. And here's the takeaway. If you've got one, keep it safe. Learn about its mint mark, its condition, and whether it's steel or copper. Don't fall for unrealistic claims online. And if you're serious about coins, whether as an investor, collector, buyer, or seller, make sure you're getting your information from trusted sources, not viral myths. This is what we do here at Rare Coin Collecting, separating fact from fiction, uncovering the real stories behind America's most talked about coins, and helping you understand what truly makes them valuable. So if you're ready to explore more hidden treasures of U.S. coinage, you're in the right place. Stick around because the next coin we cover might just surprise you. People keep saying that the 1944 silver wheat penny is worth a fortune. You've probably seen posts claiming it's worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even over $1 million. Some say if you find one, you can retire instantly. But here's the truth. Those viral claims are a mix of half-truths and pure hype. The real story is way more interesting. And if you're a serious collector or investor, You need to know the facts before you ever think about buying or selling one. First, let's start with why this coin even exists. By 1944, the United States had just finished minting the famous 1943 steel cents. In 1943, copper was needed for World War II ammunition, so the mint struck pennies on zinc-coated steel planchets instead of the traditional bronze. But in 1944, the mint went back to the normal bronze alloy, mostly copper with a little tin and zinc. Here's where the mystery begins. A tiny number of 1944 pennies were struck on leftover steel planchets from the previous year. These are the coins people call the 1944 silver pennies, because that zinc coating gives them a silver-like color. Now, these aren't supposed to exist. They're minting mistakes, a rare transitional error. That means during the switchover from steel back to copper, some leftover steel blanks accidentally went through the presses in 1944, and these could have been left in the hoppers or mixed in with new copper planchets. Either way, they slipped past quality control. How rare are they? Extremely rare. Experts believe fewer than 30 are known from all three mints combined: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. That's why they cause so much excitement in the coin community. But here's the catch: not every silvery-looking 1944 penny is valuable. In fact, most of the so-called silver 1944 pennies people find are either regular copper cents that have been plated in nickel or chrome, or damaged steel cents from 1943 that were altered to look like 1944s. If you think you have one, the very first step is a magnet test. A genuine 1944 steel cent will stick to a magnet, just like the 1943s do. But even if it passes that test, you're not in the clear. Weight is the next clue. A real one should weigh about 2.7 grams, not the 311 grams of a copper cent. And after that, you'll need authentication from a major grading service like PCGS or NGC. Without certification, you're looking at an ocean of fakes and altered coins. Now, what makes them so valuable? It's the perfect storm of rarity, history, and demand. This isn't just another error coin. It's tied to one of the most famous U.S. coin stories, the World War II steel cent experiment. Collectors specializing in Lincoln cents, error coins, or wartime coinage all want one. When you combine that with the fact that maybe 24 genuine examples are confirmed, you get intense competition at auction. The most famous sales have happened when high-grade, certified coins hit the market. And while I'm not giving exact price numbers here, let's just say the amounts have turned ordinary collectors into serious investors overnight. The jump in value between a worn example and a high-grade example is massive. Even a small bump in condition can mean a huge difference in hammer price. But here's where rare coin collecting comes in. We warn you not to fall for the trap. If you see one listed online with no authentication, or from a seller who can't show you the certification slab, walk away. No matter how convincing the pictures look, the odds are stacked against it being real. And don't forget, scammers know exactly how to prey on people chasing that million-dollar coin dream. Now let's add a little historical flavor. In 1944, the U.S. Mint actually melted down millions of spent shell casings from the war and used that metal to make copper cents. Imagine that, holding a 1944 penny made from a bullet casing that might have been on a battlefield months earlier. That's the kind of history you can't fake. And the steel planchet error from that same year? It's a frozen moment in time when the mint's machinery, human error, and wartime production chaos all collided. Here's my advice if you're hunting for one. 1. Learn the diagnostics. Date style, mint mark placement, and the telltale zinc-coated steel look. 2. Use a magnet and a scale before you get too excited. 3. If it passes those tests, submit it for grading. 4. Keep records. Provenance matters in coins this rare. The 1944 silver wheat penny is more than just a mistake. It's a rare, tangible piece of America's wartime story. But unless you approach it with knowledge and caution, it can also be an expensive lesson. So next time you hear someone say, "I found one of those million-dollar pennies," you'll know the truth. Most people haven't, and probably never will. But if you do, Well, let's just say your life as a collector might never be the same again. This is Rare Coin Collecting, and our mission is to give you the real stories behind America's most talked about coins. No hype, no clickbait, just facts you can trust. And if you're an investor, collector, buyer, or seller, and you're serious about learning what truly matters in numismatics, you're in the right place.